Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wild and Wise. I'm your host, Alex Ott, and I'm here with Rachel Brooks. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to hear more about your book and your journey. So, why don't we dive right in and talk about your book and how you got to the place to publish and write and share your journey?
Boy, that is the journey, right? So
Uh-huh.
I always say for every story, there's a backstory. And for my book, Chasing Perfection, A Journey to Healing, Fitness, and Self-Love was begrudgingly not my idea. And I did not want to write this book. In fact, I had resisted the idea of writing a book, and I never felt called or qualified to write the book. But the irony is that when the seeds are planted, they start taking root. And so after numerous people had told me you should write a book, you need to share your story, I conceded and said, you know what? I think I must. But there's a reason, right? And
Yes.
so as I began writing, I had such resistance at first because I didn't know where I was going with it. But what I found is that I was actually writing my story in real time, but pulling so much of the pieces from my past as they were shaping. And part of the healing aspect of it was this woman that I was becoming. But
Hmm.
more importantly, the writing itself, I found so therapeutic and healing that that became part of this journey. And so why, hence the journey to healing, fitness, and self love.
Yeah. So tell us more. What were the elements in your life that happened that had your friends and family and supporters urging you to do this?
Well, actually, my family had no idea I was writing this book. I was knee deep in, actually, I would probably say not knee deep, I was in over my head of personal growth and development at this point. I had found myself at rock bottom in this self induced pit, and it became part of my identity. And when I was going through this journey of climbing out of that pit, it was a moment of really self reflection. I realized that for me to get out of this pit, I had to first figure out how I got there. And that's the unraveling, that's the unbecoming, that's the unlearning in all the paths that had led me to that point. So when I took a deep dive into who I am, that was one of the pivotal questions. And honestly, probably the hardest question,
Right.
because I think I was so conditioned at that time when somebody would say, well, who are you? I just had this autoresponder. Well, I'm
Right.
not this. I suck at that. I don't have this. And it was very negative. It was very toxic. It was very lack mentality.
Mhm.
And I didn't know where this came from. And the more that I started digging into my past, I realized that there were these pivotal moments that were shaping this woman as to who I was at this point in my life. So a lot of shame, a lot of pain, a lot of heartache, heartbreak, loss, and grief compiled into this individual that was so fragile going through life that found
Mhm.
herself broken and beaten down by the world and its world's expectations of who I should be. And I never felt aligned. So when that question was posed as who are you, I didn't feel that I was those things that I was supposed to be. And so that began the deep dive inner work of who I was becoming.
And when you say the pit, tell me what was the pit? Like, what did that feel like? What did that look like? Because the pit for everybody is so different.
Yeah, so that point of my life in the pit, it was complete pitch dark. It was where I found myself was just so heavy, so dark, so depressed. There were deep, very, triggering thoughts of what if I didn't exist? Why
Mm.
am I even here? What does life look like on that other side was something I couldn't even imagine because all I've known was this darkness and this pain. And so how could I imagine something greater on the other side when I look at the through line of my life, I didn't have those moments. I had little specks and flickers of joy and happiness and light, but they were just kind of just flashes. That was it. So in that pit, it was about being alone with myself for the first time. I think many of us can relate that we're in a very noisy world where you live
Yeah.
in this do, and in order to have this life, and then we'll be content, then we'll be happy, then we'll be at peace, and then we'll have whatever that is. You fill in the blank. And I think that hustle and that grind and that performance and the perfectionism that had led me there was so ingrained in who I was
Hmm.
that I almost felt stuck, like paralyzed, because I didn't have the confidence, I didn't have the awareness or fortitude or even the insight to understand that this was created essentially by myself. Even though
Mm.
there were outside circumstances and situations that got me there, but it was my power in choosing to stay there because I didn't have that awareness level. So in this alone time, turning inward was one of the hardest, darkest, scariest moments of my life, because it's like, whoa, I got to face the past again. I got to face
Yeah.
that pain. I got to face who I am, but I don't even know who that is. And so when I had to sit in that quiet stillness, oh man, everything in my body was resisting. It was saying, "Oh, go do this, go numb out, go distract, go chase this," and it just became this constant um, tension inside. It was like this duality, this
Yeah.
fight, right? This inner struggle. And so when I realized that the voices that I was listening to that was telling me how I deserved this, or I wasn't qualified, or I didn't have this, all that negative or limiting beliefs, that little whisper in that silence said, "But who are you not?" And that was like, yeah, that is. Who am I not to share my story? Who am I not to take that risk? Who am I not to step forward? Who am I not to take that moment of take the plunge into something that I did want to. And so it allowed me that clarity. And so I started just pursuing one step at a time. And so the I am not from that lack became then who am I not to go do these things that was
Mm.
so self empowering. So it was just a moment of flipping that script in the narrative in my mind. But I had to filter through all of that, all the heaviness, all the darkness, all the mud and gunk and junk to finally hear that whisper that was calling me and saying, "Don't you remember who we are and whose we are? We're empowered. We're strong. We're confident. We can become." And so that was like the teamwork that I was working with myself, which is me and myself, and
Yeah.
not letting that outside influence.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I feel like I grew up by a very confident mom, very confident, and really didn't like know anything different until high school, where I was super bullied. And I think I was bullied because showed up very confident and very secure and very in my body and grounded. And it made people feel really uncomfortable, specifically like older girls. And the tear down was really rough. And then college kind of, built myself back up and then found my career path. And that's what really gave me everything that I thought I needed. And I was the best at what I did. I was the best intern. I was the, first one of my friends to have a career job. And I felt such a like overachiever. And I just turned 39 and I'm going through a separation and I just found the pit recently. And it was very unexpected because I didn't know how much I was avoiding my own self. And it's so interesting because I am currently unlearning. I am currently pulling back layers of my sentence. My sentence isn't always negative. It was actually super confident. But I realized that I was valuing myself off of like what I did for a living versus just who I am. And if you asked who that was, I didn't know the answer because I only aligned it with the work that I did and the success that I've had and the people that I work with and the names that I could drop and who I knew. And I've had to completely, as a mother of two, reimagine what it means to say who I am, and I'm still figuring that out, and it's tremendous. And so it's interesting that each person's dark pit, or as the book that I'm reading calls it, the dark night of the soul, which is just like that turning point of walking out of darkness and trying to find a new light, because maybe you've known light, but it has to be a light that works for the long haul and for the future. And so I'm interested, what kind of work were you doing? Like when you were saying you were shifting the way you thought, were you also doing, anything with like therapy, yoga, psychedelic? Like there's just so many modalities of healing. Were there other modalities, or was it really just the way that you spoke to yourself?
No, there are definitely modalities of healing. And for just for full transparency here, I'm in a different pit, and it's colored very heavily in dark as well. I had just recently lost my father to a tragic tragedy, and I'm in the pit again because not only was it the loss that had of my father, which I had experienced the loss of my brother 15 years ago, and so that's what part of the pit. the deep loss of losing somebody so valuable, and he was my light in my world. To fast forward 15 years later, I'm in another pit in a different season of my life, where my father and the tragedy and the horrific of how he had passed, and then uprooting my life from this driven, ambitious go-getter. And that's what I had labeled myself as. Like, this was the version I had adapted and adopted in the first pit. Now I'm in this other pit, and I'm like, ooh, I can't be that ambitious go-getter woman that I used to be. So proud to wear that label, because it was like that hustle and grind, that performance, and your achievements, it tied to your self-worth. And so
Mm-hmm.
now I'm a full-time caregiver. I've had to put a lot of my projects and my visions and the things that I was pursuing, that I found my identity in it, from that season to now, and then even just 3 months ago. So now I'm in this pit of trying to figure out, who am I now? And even though it's a different pit because it's not the first time there, I'm
Right.
picking up pages from my book. I'm taking the same tools that I have learned and helped me from the first go around, and now I'm implementing them into my life. And one would think, oh, well, you just got it, you can bounce right back. No, the
No.
season of healing and grief and loss
Yeah.
is extended, because not only did I lose my father, I lost essentially my livelihood. And now my role and my identity has changed. And now the vision and hope and things that I was working and actively pursuing are no longer. So it's like the death of so much in my life.
Yeah.
And so here I am today, in this very moment, of refining and defining who I am in the season.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
so, what tools have you used? Like, what's helpful to you? Just for the listeners, I think sometimes it's both great to hear people's stories, but also like in real time. Like, what are you doing on a daily basis to help yourself? What does it look like to heal right now?
Yeah. I'll kind of bring it back from the first go around in the pit. It was a lot of diving into personal growth and development, wanting to tune into inspirational, motivational things, trying to quiet that negative voice that was telling me all the horrific things that I was and believed about myself. And so that was a few things, to hiring coaches and mentors, to therapy, different forms of therapy, whether it's cognitive talk therapy, to behavioral therapy, to addressing some of the issues that mental health and trauma induce. And so having a safe space to talk to somebody, and allowing you just that space to breathe and heal and process. Journaling has been a huge piece of it. And then even for me, I mean, what I didn't have as much then that I have now is my faith. So I'm very
Mhm.
deep into my faith. And so when I look at that component from the first go around to this time around, the process of understanding loss and grief, and that has allowed me to heal much faster, because from
Yeah.
again, where my faith is, it allows me to know where my father is, and gives me closure and peace. So now I'm taking some of the pages out of my book, and I'm even using some of the digital products and tools that I had originally created that helped me get through it. And now I give back as part of our offer suite for the Confident Woman, which is our mission driven movement and lifestyle media brand. So those tools have been really helpful, because it poses questions that are deep and reflective, makes you really think about yourself, but in a way that builds a healing relationship. So it's not just surface level, like, oh, who am I? And you say, oh, well, I'm an entrepreneur, a founder, whether, you're a mom, a wife, or whatever role and occupation that we tend to lead with, because we're high performance and high achievers, that's how we lead. Like, oh, well, I did this and this and this. And it's like, no, but who are you really?
Right.
And
And
so
that's what you did,
taking
not who you are. It's a difference.
right. And
Right.
so peeling that layer back and getting to the core of who you are, and knowing, what is your beliefs? What are your values? What do you stand for? So what are your non-negotiables? What are your boundaries? What are your priorities? How do you speak to and about yourself? Like, really developing that relationship. And I
Hmm.
think that when we have that loving understanding in relationship with ourselves, it colors the way that we have relationships with others.
Yeah.
So for me, again, pulling back the former version of myself, I did not have a loving, healthy, healing relationship with myself. I did not. I was that negative voice. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do you one better. And I would just speak even more negatively about myself. And then
Hmm.
I would pull evidence from my evidence bucket to say, oh, remember that time or that past thing, or, and then it would pipe up to shame me and make me feel
Hmm.
guilty. And so that was the negative narrative loop that I was on repeat for decades long, until that light bulb turned on, because in the darkness, I had nowhere else to go, but still. And when the light bulb came on, I had that awareness like, no, this isn't who I am. Those are things that happen to me. But what if I have this power that I could flip the script and now use what happened to me for good? So, how can I reframe those thoughts? How can I reframe the negative language that I'm speaking to and about myself into empowering? How can I take that past mistake and learn from it and now help others as well? How can I take, until we start pulling these pieces of our fabric and we're essentially taking that big ball of yarn that has been unraveled and we're neatly replacing it. We're rolling it up one by one, and we take this slow process. So as I'm becoming healed and whole. And so when we align our mind and our bodies, we have this regulation inside of us too, because we can't just think ourselves into healing. We can't just think ourselves into positive mindset stuff. If the body is traumatized and carrying so much of what was, it's going to feel misaligned. And that's where we're essentially, there's a duality that's fighting against each other. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's like you can't speak yourself into positive affirmations. If you don't believe it, you won't become it.
Right.
So now you have to ask yourself, why don't I believe it? And then it's like, well, always going to point to something negative or past. But what if you could take that positivity and receive it and wholeheartedly start looking for the evidence to support it? Because it's always there. It's just where
Right.
our mind is shifting to look. And
Right.
so I take that approach and the tools that have helped me, and again, doing the same thing here in today, and using those the tools. But I've also found what worked for me is developing my what I call my fit from within philosophies. And we focus on the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and then the physical becomes the byproduct. Because previously, when going back, chasing perfection, the journey of healing, fitness, and self love, the fitness was a big piece of it because I had such a warped relationship with my body and how I saw things. So physically is what I measured my success by. Did I physically look the part? Did I physically have the certification? Did I physically have the title? Did I physically have the accolades? So it was about what was created in this reality, but not in the physicality of who I actually am.
That journey is so interesting, especially because once you do it once, you don't realize you're going to have to do it over again. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that, once you open the door to, uncovering more about yourself and you're in a place that is your only option. Because I do believe the most in-depth work that one can do on themselves is at a time where that is their only option. Because trust me, no one would really choose when life is going well to do this kind of work. It is debilitating. It is off-putting. It is heart-wrenching to be able to begin to uncover where that voice comes from, whose voice that really is. Was it the high school bully girl that did X, Y, and Z? Was it the way my mother spoke to herself? Was it the boy that I thought I loved that didn't love me back? Like there are so many different entities that build the way that you speak to yourself. And in my case, I thought I didn't have negative self-talk because I feel like I'm beautiful. I feel sexy. I like what I see. I mean, I don't think it's perfect, but I'm satisfied, and I like to get dressed up and I feel confident and I have awesome friends, and build the list, right? La 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 la. But I began to basically show signs of an autoimmune disease and tried a lot of different doctors and in Western medicine and could not get the answers, was getting worse, and found, and again, I'm only like maybe 5 sessions deep, but found a spiritual acupuncturist. And in our first session, he's like, "What brings you in today?" And I really was very honest. I just got out of a relationship and I explained to him the type of energy that was held in that relationship. And out of respect for him, I won't go into too much detail, but I explained the way I felt in the home when we were together and what that I felt did to my body, like my nervous system. And I don't remember what I said, but his first kind of comment back to me, the acupuncturist, was like, "Wow, like you're so being so mean to yourself." And I was absolutely taken aback. I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "You've just gone through all of these things. You've been put in such a hard place that you actually chose, to be a single mom essentially because you had had enough. And instead of giving yourself love, like how hard that must have been, how much you must have gone through to have to make that decision because that was a better option. You're telling yourself that you just can't believe that this is happening. And as soon as it gets better, you're going to go do this. And she's like, you're not even pausing, which is probably why this is happening. And he was very honest with me. He's like, this is happening because you're not pausing to go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. But I think because I'm so like not a victim and I'm like a power bitch and I'm like all these things, that never in my life did it cross my mind to go, Alex, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. I mean, just never even crossed my mind to give myself that nourishment and to give myself that pause, that grace, that love, that voice. And it really changed me. And just from him saying that to me, like, cause he was like, oh my gosh, like he was like affected by the way I was speaking to myself, which I thought was like, go get him, girl. You can do this. Just push through it. I thought I was doing the right thing. I didn't even know. It wasn't even like you're ugly or you don't deserve love. I mean, so in my mind, on a scale, I thought pretty high up on the confidence and self-love scale. But I realized there was so much more to it, that I wouldn't slow down, that I wouldn't pause, that I wouldn't sit in my own pain, that I couldn't sit in my own misery, that I would work instead or go out with friends. And like, I just couldn't sit still. And then then that just opened up a whole door of like how much I was doing that in the relationship, and how I could never just sit with his pain and I couldn't sit with my own. And I mean, oh my gosh, it's so interesting once you start to open the doors and sit and be quiet, what heavy weights lie beneath the surface. And like I said before, I think the only time someone would be brave enough to choose such a journey is when they're almost at like a rock bottom or a dark night of the soul, where, again, I always thought like I would feel that dark if like I had no money or I like lost my children or, all these dark things. And it's like, nope, great house, great job, great company, great friends, like all is very well. And so I think that's another voice from my childhood that's like, if you have all these things, then you're good. No need to be sad. Be grateful, be grateful, be grateful. And I am working to just go, no, it's okay to know that you can have all these great things. And thank God for that, because that's what holds me up in the times that I can't hold myself up. But that like there is so many other layers that lie beneath the surface of the busyness of avoidance and avoiding your pain and avoiding how you're feeling. And it's now coming out literally through like itchy eyes and face. And like I'm just really diving into learning about the nervous system and trauma and the body keeps score, and how,
Such a great book, isn't it?
it's hard though. I mean, it's really, because I promised myself I would not be hard or mean to myself. And every time a thought comes up, I'm quickly switching it. But you can't help but feel like, God, how did I do this to myself for so long? And I won't allow myself to sit in that moment, because I just have to switch and go, you're learning it now for a reason. You're not even 40 yet. You have all the time in the world to teach your children these things that you're learning right now. But I guess I just didn't see this life lesson coming. Like it's hit me over the head in a way that I never expected.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can definitely relate to so much of what you're talking about, when it's like when things are going good. Because even as the former version to now, it's like, oh, I had all these 15 years of like doing the inner work, and things started to pick up and things are great. And I'm at the high. I'm at the high of it, like the pinnacle of everything in my life. And all of a sudden everything just gets kicked out. And then as one leg started crumbling, breaking, then the other leg, and then the other leg, and all of a sudden everything comes crumbling down just as of 3 months ago. And it was just the most devastating, because I'm like, when I thought I was at rock bottom, then there was such a deeper level of rock bottom. And then I found beneath the rocks is where I am right now. Well, 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I'm on the rehabilitation side of it. But to your point, it's like we can think ourselves into, oh, well, nothing's wrong because we got all these things. We're checking the box, right? The money, the house, the car, the family, the friends, the business, the success, all these things. But our past will always keep up to us. It's always embedded in our DNA. Hence, The Body Keeps a Score. That's such a great book because it colors the way that we don't really think about what trauma is inflicting upon us. It's colored into our DNA. It's colored into the way our nervous system would react and respond. And, we can say, oh, I'm good. But then the body's kind of like, oh, but remember that time you were bullied. Remember that time somebody said something. And you're, even though you're not thinking it, because the memory is not a big deal, right? But the body is just conditioned to like kind of retract and tighten. And then there's this little bits of anxiety that I see peaking up. And then it's like it turns into full blown panic attacks to, oh my gosh, this is my real life. I can't believe this. To now I'm like super depressed. And it's like, but is this depression or is this just the season I'm in? And so then it's just this combination of you turning inward and like, oh my gosh, who did I become in this? How did
Mm-hmm.
I get so far off? What yet looking out, my life is great. I've
Mm-hmm.
checked every damn box. I hit my 10-year goal in 3. I'm at the top. Look at me. I'm worthy. Look at me. I'm achieved. I'm successful. And it's all these things that now we find that that was who we are trying to avoid, but we essentially became
Mm-hmm.
because we funneled and fueled what we were. The pain went into the wrong corral. It just went into the wrong faucet and it started performing in a different way. But those were considered in a worldly ways healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because chase the dreams and have the things and check the boxes. But all we did was just move from one lane to the other. And were we really happy because were we the person that could actually receive all that and be content? Were we that healed whole person? Or were we just running from one thing to the next? And
Yeah.
these are things that I'm literally in real time thinking through. And
Same,
I'm like,
same.
dang.
Right now, I'm just like, oh shit, man. Yes, you're exactly speaking to like my 20s and now I
Yeah.
guess 30s. I mean, it's a wild thing, but the beautiful thing is like that we're doing it now and it came at the time that we needed it. Like I am very like optimistic Sally, like I will always be that like I don't think I don't know that I would have had the space or fortitude or experience in my 20s or even my early 30s to even think like this. Like it had to happen this way. And it did
Mhm.
lead to setting me up to be quite comfortable in the presence of pain because I do have this beautiful home and it's not about how big it is, but it like heals me. And it's because I have worked hard so that I can live in this neighborhood that's so special. And it's not about the Joneses. This is like a random neighborhood, but it's perfect for me and it feels really good here. And so it's interesting because it's like almost all the times that we switched lanes with our pain to go be successful, write the book, move to a big city, start a new business. I think the pain probably spawned a lot of the allowance to kind of be in the true pain now with such a longer and better perspective on life, right? Like if I had felt this kind of pain, which I felt, my father also passed away, but when I was 19, and I definitely felt just lost and dark and very much numbing and consuming, and probably spent most of my 20s numbing and consuming. And, it wasn't until I found out that I was pregnant at 30 with my son that was very big surprise that that started to shift. But it also opened up a completely different darkness and wound that again had kind of transferred over. And I think that's what I wasn't expecting during this time of like separation was I really thought like I just want to be by myself and I just want to create an energy and experience in my home that I can be in control of. And what I didn't realize was that as I started to heal, every other thing was coming up. And I was like, no, 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 no. We're just getting over this, wonderful relationship that is, had its time and he's great and he's kind and he's respectful and there wasn't like anything nasty or terrible that happened. So we're just going to keep this in a little container and just heal from this and then we're going to move on to the next chapter. And the universe and my body, my mind, my nervous system was like, absolutely not. And I think I'm finally out of the like, holy shit, is this really happening phase. But for like the last probably month or two, I've just been like, how is this? Why is this like, I don't understand. I thought I had signed up for one thing and really I was opening the door to all of the things. And it takes a really strong person, a really resilient person, or not. I mean, it's okay. I don't feel like I need to be resilient. I like used to be very like going out to every social event. I just don't want to right now. I just don't feel like it. I don't feel like putting on makeup. And I think allowing yourself that time to be okay with that and not judge yourself has been so nice. But also, through the acupuncture. I have like a list on my iPhone of just like Alex's health. And because I'll forget, I'm not good at taking care of myself. And it's like, you know, these herbs, this tea, like, and I have to literally look at it every day so I don't get off track, just to like remind myself of like the few little ritualistic or just quite literally like an hour walk, you know, twice a week. You know, I try to go real low on the goals just to like make sure I'm still even doing the bare minimum. And that consistency and sort of keeping a promise to myself is what I think has started to really build me back. And I've started to see the light for the first time in a while. But I could see it around me that everyone, including my ex, was like very worried. Like everyone was just like, are you, I don't know if you're okay. You know, my best friend from LA came down and just stayed for like a week. And we didn't say anything about it. She was just here. But I don't think anybody's really seen me like that, probably since my father passed when I was 19. And there's a lot of shame around it. There's a lot of like, you know, just understanding that it's okay. You know, I mean, that alone, it's so simple. But if someone had shown me that this is what it would be, like, I don't know that I would have signed up for it. You know, it's definitely, I'm in it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would ever volunteer and say, sign me up. I think I'm ready for a complete overhaul and life change. And even if you were and you just volunteered, you would not have prepared for what was
Right.
and how much of it, because it's like we really don't know the depths of it. We don't know the pain and the struggle and the heartache and heartbreak that comes behind it, because it's not so much about the changing of our environments or our outside things, but it's the constant changing of who we need to refine and define who we are.
Yeah.
So those elements of losing yourself through all these different seasons and transitions is the hardest thing, because we've had a vision for ourselves, right? We had goals, we had aspirations, and all of a sudden now you're looking at like, where'd it go? What
Yeah.
happened? And now you're just kind of stuck in, it's like almost just dropped out of the sky in this dark pit or wherever, darkness, and you're just like, what way's left, what way's right? Like you don't even know what direction to go. And so this void, this dark, vast void of uncertainty causes this moment of scrambling, because we're just grasping at straws, trying to find something to hold on to, because we need an element of control. We need to know what's next. We need to know that we're not just drowning in the sea of nothingness.
Yeah.
So how, there's that element of surviving and scrambling and fighting for your life, and you don't even know if you're like really just an inch away from like touching ground and you're okay, you don't have to
Yeah.
scramble and struggle. But then there's also that piece of like, what if there's no one there to catch me? What if I can't make it out? What if, and we start looking internally, like putting the power on us to say like, you're not supposed to control the outcome. If you had all the answers in the control, we wouldn't be in a situation where we're at today. So it was
Mhm.
about letting go of control, and that was even harder, because it's like, oh my gosh, and if anything that I want is control, I want to hold on to something. And that causes that spiraling out of control and just feeling like this whole thing is swallowing you up whole. And you don't even know all these flashes of like who you were, who you were becoming, the future version, but like who are you now? And you're just like, I don't even know where I'm at now. So I don't know who I am now. Like that's the last thing I want to protect and feel safe internally, let alone I
Yeah.
don't care who I am. Just let me know that I'm safe. And that
And
was
it's
the
hard
biggest
too in
thing.
those moments to even feel like it's a gift that you can rebuild how you want, you know, and you
Oh
can
yeah.
imagine what does feel good. I haven't asked myself that in years. What feels good to me? How do I want to feel? How do I want to walk away from a night out with a girlfriend and feel? How do I want to feel when I'm tucking myself into bed at night? How do I want to feel when I'm just walking alone? And I feel like that has sort of been the one thing that we can't control is our thoughts. And even when it gets dark and you're like, this is not what I should be thinking. But it's really lovely to be able to say, like, I don't feel it right now, but in a perfect world, in a fresh world with a fresh start and this new chapter, what would a great day feel like? And I really go deep in closing my eyes and knowing that like the breeze coming through the canyon or the jazz that's playing or the Palo Santo burning in my kitchen, like the smell of just peace and the feeling of peace and really like asking God for that.
Yeah. Yeah, same. And it's like you have to envision that. And that's one of the talk about tools and things that have helped me. Obviously, gratitude was a huge piece. And it's like how could you be grateful in such a dark season? Like, what is, and it's like, okay, just start there. You're grateful that you're alive. You're here. You got breath in your lungs, beating heart. Just write that every day. And
Yeah.
then it became what, we tend to think of like, what do I want to do or what do I want to achieve today? And then I was like, no, we're not doing we're not verbing. There's
Yeah.
no verb. There's just a context of what do I want to feel? And then
Mhm.
when I asked myself, it was just in the being, because the feel allows you to be present. You don't have to do anything. There's no verbing. And then I was like, great question. What do I want to feel today? Well, I don't want to feel like I'm spiraling out of control. I don't want to cry uncontrollably. I don't want to feel this heaviness. So it's like, okay, you don't want to feel that. So what's the counterpart of that? I
Mhm.
want to feel present. I want to feel whole. I want to feel loved. I want to feel laughter. And so as I'm envisioning what does that look like and feel like, my mind is already creating a vision for it. It's already creating it. And so when you close your eyes, just like what you said, you can envision the smells, the sights, the sounds, the scene, like everything. You tap into your five senses. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden that the feeling like you're drowning in this storm, everything just becomes so silent and still. And then your body is aligning with the mind. The mind is calming it because it's saying, oh, do you smell that scent? Can you taste that lemon in your cold water and the way that the ice would clink against the glass? And all of a sudden you're tuned into that,
Mhm.
and everything else dissipates. So it was a sense of just shifting, making those small little shifts, and the feelings allowed me to be have more, I guess, more centered, and brought
Yeah.
more joy and more um, confidence and freedom in that sense,
Yeah.
versus, oh, I have to do X, Y, and Z, because our mind will
Yeah.
automatically go to our laundry
A
list of things
to-do
that never
list,
get
right.
done.
Well,
Right. And
it's
now
you're
we
actually grounded,
avoid
so
it.
that is the form of control because you're feeling what the energy feels like around you in a positive way, like the lemon in your drink, or like right now, for some reason, the roses outside my house are blooming like crazy. And every single day when I pull up, I'm like, the roses. But it could be the darkest of days, and I will say the roses because I want them to know. I want them roses to know that I see them. And I also want to give the gratitude of those small moments. I mean, it's why like even when the girls on my team are here, I will shout out these amazing things that are happening to me, not to brag, but to be overtly vocal about my gratitude for these, as my mom calls it, fairy dust moments, these things that miraculously happen. Like I was in a car accident in August and didn't pursue any type of financial compensation and just got a call from a lawyer that they're just sending like a fair amount of money that was so unexpected. And I was just like, yeah, like I just feel like this that energy is energy I've had though. And I think that's why it's been hard for me, is because I had the fairy dust energy. I'd find myself backstage at like the craziest concert with great people, and not for any dark reason other than like I said hello to somebody. And so I think what's been hardest for me is I've always had the great energy, and then all of a sudden, with this moment in my life, this season, it felt like everything got dark. And I was like, but this so feels so foreign. It feels so foreign. So these little moments of like, getting free concert tickets to somebody that I love from a friend because they can't go, or a check coming in the mail from a car accident, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can feel the energy coming back, that great life altering, sort of otherworldly entity that has always had its hand on me. I feel lucky because I know not everybody feels that way. And I do feel like a lot of my life I have. And so I'm just now making sense of the darkness by understanding what doors it's opening for me again. That will continue to happen. I need to know that I can feel that way again and I'll be okay. But oof, it's been rough.
Right. And that's why having that gratitude practice, because we can always revert back, even if we can't find those moments of joy now. We knew what they felt like because
Yeah.
we did experience it. And so sometimes it takes, just flipping through pages of old entries, and or keeping a joy jar. So those moments of like,
I
oh,
love that.
remember everything's crashing down in my world, so we can get in these dark places. But it's like, pull something from your joy jar and be like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh my, and now you have this funny memory or this lovable, laughable time that you can reflect on. And it's like that just overshadows the darkness and becomes the light in your dark season. And even now, it's like when things feel so heavy, there's always, it's just a season is what I say. We're just getting through the season. We got to trudge through the mud. It sucks. It's uncomfortable. It's painful. It's ugly. It's messy. But you know what's on the other side? Everything that you're aspiring for, right? So it's not about doing, you don't have to do anything except just be still and kind of let those waves crash over you, because eventually the storm will calm down. And then
And I
there's
don't
going to
even know if
be,
at this point I'm aspiring for anything. And that is sort of the beauty, is that
mhm,
I think everything that is meant for me on the other side will find me. And so it
right.
takes this tremendous pressure off to go, because I want to open a business, opened it. I want to move to Chicago, I did it. And there is this weird time in women's lives around late 30s, early 40s that is this like wildly transitional, life-changing, call it perimenopause. I call it like my hormones are moving myself in a way that I feel more clear than ever, but it may not be to everyone's liking. I was actually just watching a podcast the other day that said like the biological things that happen to a woman's body between 38 and 42 basically results in her not having to please everyone all the time. So people think that she's a bitch, or people think that she's, not nice to be around anymore, but she's really just actually tuning into herself. And maybe this time in our lives is feels dark because we've been raised in a society of, either achieving because we have to prove something because we are a woman, or having to make everybody else feel comfortable around us. And part of that might be the way we look or the way that we act in the work world or in friendships. And there just comes a time, and mine sort of collided all at once. It was like all at once. I had to shed
Mhm.
sort of all the layers. And instead of getting overwhelmed with deciding, okay, I shed, so what now? I just had to find this peaceful, centered trust that I don't know, but it will find me. I don't know what it looks like. But as soon as I did that, that's sort of the turning point of when like really big things happened. Or, I've been getting phone calls for work that are like big, amazing, aligned projects. And I just think that's so funny, because normally I'd be hungry and going after people and figuring out the money and having that fear-based mentality. And, we're growing and I want to make sure my girls are taken care of. And what do I got to do? And I kind of just went like, I know we're good and I have really good girls working for me. And I know that like the right thing will come. And it's already started to turn that way. It's really incredible sometimes how that happens. But the work to get there is grueling.
Yep. Yeah. It's when we just stop kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
Things just,
And our parents didn't do that work. So this is all new, by the
no,
way.
they
You
did
like
not.
let every woman off the hook to be like, I didn't know it was going to be like this. No, 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 we
No,
did it.
nobody did.
Nobody's been doing this yet. Like we are sort of that first generation. Even if I think about like my friends in their 50s, I mean, some of them are, but most are not doing this work. And with all due respect and love. I mean, again, so like quite literally, we're at the forefront as like the oldest sort of group that's embarking on like a full life, whereas it might be easier for the younger generation because their Instagram feed since they've been 13 have been filled with self-care, self-love, self-healing. We're writing books now just to help ourselves figure it out. I mean,
Yes,
bravo to you for
exactly.
that.
Exactly. And it's it's funny now because I got my mom on this gratitude kick, and we're doing a 7-day no complaint challenge, and just
Oh,
for fun, because it's like, oh, because listen,
that's a
it's
good
easy to find
one.
complaints. Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so hard because now we catch ourselves and we're like, we're not complaining, we're just stating a fact, and we are grateful for X, Y, and Z. And like, for example, she said, my shoulders are killing me. I have so much pain. And I said, we're not complaining. We're acknowledging that we have shoulders and that we are able to feel. And it's just, it's silly little things
I
that
love
we're
that
doing,
though. I think
bouncing back
that's
and forth.
fantastic.
Because it shifts it immediately, just because it's so easy. Right now we've been in 3 months of like hustle and grind, moving from state to state to uprooting our lives. Our lives had tragically changed. It was day before their 53rd wedding anniversary. So it's like, oh my gosh, all these things. So it's like, our mind had been kind of conditioned in that scarcity, healing, and dark
Mhm.
season. But it was like, hey, Mom, what if we did this 7-day, not a gratitude challenge, but a 7-day no complaint? Because when we're complaining, we shift the narrative. Now we can start implementing the gratitude, because gratitude can sometimes feel a bit cliche, like, oh, I love my life. And,
Right,
and it's
right.
just, you become an autopilot. where it's like, no, we're actually reshifting our narrative, our language, and the way that we're speaking to and about ourselves. But also our body is now, says slumped over on my pain to like, oh, you know what? That is a great point. I hadn't looked at it that way. And I know that for your listeners, it's just like a little bit of example, but you can get as microscopic or like macro on the macro level as much as you want. But it's just kind of a fun challenge that now, my mother is, you know, not in this era, did not come from this stuff. And so it's fun that I get to bring and do this with her. So
Yeah.
it's part of our healing and little therapies, things that we're doing in this season. But yeah, to your point, I mean, we weren't shown this. This was not a path. This was,
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe you can relate. And, for me growing up, it was we don't ever talk about emotions. We don't even have feelings. We don't even talk about ourselves. We don't talk about any of this stuff. We just head down, grind, do our thing. And how we show that we're a contribution to society is basically what we can produce and perform, because now we're earning our worth, and our worth is tied to what our outcome is. And so that's how we achieve love, is because we're worthy of it. We earned it. We did this. We married the right guy. Didn't, do this, that, and the other thing. But then we never learned to actually give ourselves love. And so
Mm-hmm.
we were conditioned to externally drive for the things that we needed, which is part of the body part, is now we're in survival mode our entire lives, because we
Yeah.
never learned to just be safe and seen and secure in who we are, that we didn't have to hustle our way through, because our worth is tied to our identity, and our identity is tied to our birthright, and our birthright is tied to, for me, my faith, because my creator created me with, on, and for a purpose. And it's like, so you mean I don't have to do anything to earn it? Nope. Okay, well, what about the other thing? Nope. And it's like you start asking yourself these things, and it's like, wow, I don't have to kick and scream. I don't have to throw these tantrums. I don't have to hustle. And to your point, when you let go, things start coming naturally to you,
Mm-hmm.
because we had essentially been putting up these barriers that we're resisting what is meant to come, because we're so focused on, well, I have to do it. It's this power trip, this control, but it's really
Mm-hmm.
not. It's just
Yeah.
in the being, not the doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Well, I'm wishing you and your mother a beautiful journey together and this fresh start that you guys are on. I'm so grateful that you came on the podcast. Tell everybody where they can find you and your book.
Yes, absolutely. So you can find me everywhere online at I Am Rachel Brooks. My website is iamrachelbrooks.com, and my book, Chasing Perfection, A Journey to Healing, Fitness, and Self-Love, is sold everywhere online. And if you don't want to read it, I'll read it to you. It's on Audible. So just follow me. And if you do read it, I'd love to connect, because I love having conversations around just personal growth and learning about your journey and just connection. It's that's the one thing as a creator. You put out your work and your heart and your soul, and you want to know that it's touching lives and impacting and
Yeah,
making a difference. So let's connect.
that's beautiful. Thank you so much for being on Wild and Wise.
Thank you.